I think we're going to start dead on time. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this evening's Inclusive Circle, focused on mobility. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mark Bullock, Samantha's husband. She sends her apologies. She's in Brazil, so doing some fashion work out there, so she can't be with us tonight. And I'm multitasking tonight because our chair has had to send his apologies for personal reasons, so I'm also going to chair this evening. So thanks very much for coming, and I'm just going to start off by introducing our panel. So to my left, we have Emma Percy from the Stair Climbing Company, which is a family-run business dedicated to creating accessible spaces for everyone. Their innovative stair climbers provide dignified, flexible and cost-effective solutions for people with mobility challenges, transforming venues, attractions, historic buildings, and to make them into inclusive spaces without the need for permanent fixtures. And Emma also helped, and the Stair Climbing Company helped us at that last fashion show. So can we give Emma a bit of a round of applause, please? And then our next panelist is Eric Killstrom, who's the chair of Centre Robotics, a company reimagining personal mobility for the 10% of the world's population who need mobility support. With a background spanning major corporations and disruptive startups, I like disruption, Eric combines business insight and innovation to make mobility smarter, more human and more empowering. And beyond his leadership at Centre Robotics, he's deeply involved in community and ageing initiatives, bridging technology and well-being. So Eric, thank you very much and welcome. And then to Eric's left, we have Lindsay Mitchen from NeoWalk. She's a designer and amputee, is the founder of NeoWalk, a brand that's redefining mobility aids as an expression of beauty, identity and confidence. Through her handcraft walking sticks, so we've got a walking stick we can wave. Yeah, they're pretty impressive. Yeah. So she's turned what was once a symbol of limitation into a global fashion statement, embraced by icons like Christina Applegate and adored by many for its boldness and style, which I think you can see. So, Lindsay, thank you very much for joining us. And our final panellist is Chloe Shendell-Wilson, who's a disability policy expert, bringing a wealth of experience in disability policy advocacy and systemic change. Her work focuses on breaking barriers and ensuring that accessibility isn't an afterthought, but a standard across industries. With a deep understanding of both policy and lived experience, she connects community voices with institutional change to drive inclusion forward. So welcome, Chloe. Thank you very much. So once again, it's a real pleasure to have everyone here this evening. Thanks for supporting the Inclusive Circle. And we're just going to start off with a few questions. And I'm going to start with Emma to my left. So Emma, when thinking about accessibility, what do you believe are the most important factors organisations and venues should consider?
Well, if you'd have asked me that question 2 or 3 years ago, the answer probably would have been quite different. And then fast forward to where we are now. So I think we very much thought about the solution as being the technology or the product. And, you know, my lived experience. And after being able to walk away from the day-to-day business and spend time with the end user, learning and growing as a business and as an individual, I can now say that actually it's about the experience of the end user. So whether that's an employer and a future employee, or whether that's a visitor and an exhibitor, or a hospitality venue. Thank you. What we realised is that very quickly when we worked with National Trust at Wimpole, that actually it's the planning of the journey for the individual right from the start. And this had nothing to do with the stair climber. This was about managing expectations and understanding that at the point of whether they plan to choose to even visit that venue is the point at whether they will even consider. So, in a nutshell, I think what's really a learning experience for us is that it's the whole journey and the whole experience, not just the solution. And it takes a collaboration of multiple solutions to get to get to that, the best outcome possible.
Thank you very much.
That answers the question.
No, very good. Yeah, no, thank you. Now over to Eric. And Centre Robotics are doing really interesting work redesigning personal mobility through technology. What inspired you to take on the challenge, and how is Centre changing the way people think about movement, independence and connection?
Well, so can you hear me okay? Is that all right? So it comes down to the problem that we're solving. And I think for us, we're listening to what people want rather than what clinicians say people want. And I think I was asked earlier, said, how did I come to Centaur Robotics? I came to Centaur Robotics because I was involved with healthy aging. And there's a study that has been done into healthy aging, and it's an 80-year study, and it's not your genes, it's not your social class, it's not your education. It's the quality of your social connections are the #1 thing to help you live better longer. And that's actually the problem that we're looking to solve, is keeping people socially engaged, and that's what matters. So we design for social situations. So some of our competitors will get you on ski slopes and the beach. We get you to the places that allow you to live better longer, which is the dining table, which is at the, with friends and family, working on your bucket list, whether that's at the airport or a cruise ship or a shopping center. It's social engagement. We happen to make a mobility device.
Yeah, I love that. Through my work in sport, where we say we don't coach sports, we coach people. And it's the connections that sport brings that are more important probably than the sport itself. So no, they're brilliant. Love those reflections. So Lindsay, you've transformed walking sticks into a bold expression of identity and style. What was the moment you realised mobility aids could also be beautiful and empowering?
Hello. So I have a long history with disability now, right back to 2007, so we're getting on for nearly 20 years of disability. I lost my leg in 2010 and I became an above-knee amputee, and that meant I had to navigate the world in a completely different way. And I was a super active amputee. I wore a prosthetic, but I still felt that sometimes I needed a walking stick for some balance and just a little bit of confidence. And it was when I looked around the mobility aid world, and everything was just very grey, and it was very basic, and it hadn't been, there'd been no thoughtfulness put into the design of it to make people feel that it was fashionable and it was stylish, because a large proportion of the younger generation now are using mobility aids. There's a lot of diagnosis of different chronic diseases going on a lot earlier now. So it became evident to me, because I was only in my early 40s, so I wasn't that old, and I wanted something that reflected my personality and sort of gave me confidence, which is why I made my first walking stick. And what happened to me when I went out with it, people engaged with me, they spoke to me about it, they said, oh wow, what a walking stick, and it just lifted my confidence. And that was when I realised that mobility aids can do this, because up until then I had no experience of this. All they did was make me feel really ashamed and just hide it behind on a photograph, don't have the wooden walking stick out, because there's nothing attractive about them. So when I discovered that was the effect that they had on me, and I was just like your average disabled person out on the street, I realised that I could give that to other people. And it was that point when I realised that other people were feeling the same way as me. And that's quite heartbreaking, really, because I knew how low it made me feel. And to be able to come up with such a simple solution as putting some design ideas into a simple mobility aid. And it's changed lots of people's lives and just given them confidence. It's hard, until you've done it, it's almost hard to imagine the difference that something like that can make, but I believe it does. And we're really proud to make them and to serve the community that we serve.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thank you very much. Yeah, I love the sticks. It's the first time I've seen them in the flesh, and I'm very impressed. So, Chloe, from a policy perspective, where do you see the biggest gaps in ensuring equal access to mobility for disabled people in public spaces?
I think there's a couple of things. I guess, talking about, you just spoke about the National Trust, there's some examples of where organisations are already doing really good work, and I think that the government should be encouraging that. Or we did a sports paper last year and we spoke sort of similar about private businesses, about how you should be showcasing best practice and showing like what's successful in someone's local area. I think that facilitating and sort of convening what works and what's good in someone's community and sort of nationally as well. But then also at the same time, there are so many cases where people's basic legal rights aren't met, where they're turned away from a venue that they go to, or they're on holiday and they're on holiday, and I was with a family member last year, and anyway, we won't go into it, but basically you see on day-to-day basis where people are turned away from being able to just, as Eric said, going out and enjoying themselves and socialising and taking part in everyday activities that we all should be able to do. And I think actually the time has probably come, we said this in our sports paper last year on a sort of similar area, on sort of sports organisations, is that now maybe they should be setting what best practice is and encouraging people with a sort of carrot approach. But actually you have to reach a deadline maybe where you say like by 2030, if you don't meet your basic legal requirements, we're going to fine you, or we're going to do something. I think that those legal structures need to be a bit stronger, that if someone is basically, if someone breaks the law by denying access to a disabled person, we need stronger legal rights and protections, I think. And I think it is about time that the government did set a deadline for when that would be as well.
Yeah, we need to have a conversation, Chloe, about sport, because that's how I'm starting to feel, having done this for 30 years. At what point do we really call them out and say, hang on, you've had long enough to do this, you need to do it. Brilliant. And back to Emma. So your stair climbers have opened access to some amazing places. Where are some of the more surprising or inspiring spaces they've been used that people might not even realise? Well, give me the mic this time.
For those of you, just quickly, who don't know what a stair climber is, it is a mobile device that can attach a wheelchair. So it's for wheelchair users, but that we also offer models for those that have mobility issues. And they can be stored away when not needed, but they can transform a space immediately. Not in every single scenario, but in pretty much most situations. So whether it's for an event, or whether it's for a historic space, or whether it's for a lift failure, or there are so many spaces we work in. But actually, very early on, we were very fortunate to work with the World Heritage Roman baths in Bath, and have gone on to work with some of their other properties. But I don't know if you've ever been, but they have a suspended walkway for people to, so they don't damage what's sort of beneath it. Yeah, our stair climbers quite happily cruise along the base, so that we were quite happy with that. And it was just brilliant to see that space could be accessed. And then there's trickier things like the Tyne Tunnel in Newcastle, which used to be sort of an escalator and had sort of 300 steps. And so we get involved with, last Thursday I was in Jersey working with Jersey Heritage at their castle and making, they are adamant they will get visitors up 250 steps so that they can look over to see Normandy, and they can join in, and it's about being inclusive for all. Where possible, we will help make that happen. But these Carnival cruise ships, it's on the gangway crawlers, I mean, you name it. We are in mills, we're in aeroplanes, we're in Galway, and they're ferry ships. There are so many. It's endless. But probably the most recent one, which I'm really, really proud of, is the oldest music hall in the world, and that is in Scotland. I can never pronounce it. The Britannica Music Hall, and because of the stair climber, it means they can admit more guests, more families, more generations of families. This is not just daughter and mother and grandma. This is a generation family group that without the stair climber, they wouldn't be going through the door. They wouldn't consider it. So I've got off bit
Fantastic.
there.
And I think after last night, we all should be going to Scotland because there'll be a party going on still.
Going on.
After last night, did anyone watch the football last night? Oh, I wasn't the only one. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
1998.
1998. Yep. And yeah, it was impressive. I happened to be on a meeting with a Scottish colleague as we were allegedly in a meeting, but we were both watching the football. Anyway, Eric, you spent years working at the intersection of ageing and innovation. How do you see technology helping bridge generations and creating a more inclusive future for mobility?
So mobility impairment goes across generations, doesn't it? I mean, I think I came at it from an aging population perspective, and I think what we have done is try to expand our perspective. There's been a lack of innovation when it comes to wheelchairs and mobility, and I think we're beginning to see some of it. But part of our approach to expanding innovation in this space has been to take a wider perspective. So we want everyone to be desirous of, something that we make. So we want our vehicles to be used in Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, whether it's a young person or an older person, it shouldn't matter. And design does matter. And there's a reason that people pay for things that they like, as opposed. I don't buy my clothes at Tesco. It may look like I don't, but people pay more for nice clothes, and we're trying to make it as affordable as possible. Design matters for. So someone said to me, "I lost my mobility, not my sense of aesthetic," and I thought to me that actually is yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and so that's true of any age. And so what we're trying to do is envy, not pity. The founder of our organization, a guy named David Rajan, who Fiona very kindly connected us, his son had cerebral palsy. But he found it hard to get his innovation up and off the ground, because if you sell a wheelchair to everybody that has a wheelchair in the UK, that's 1 million people. And the hard fact, the business fact of it, is that investors say that's just too small of a market, which is a shame because it's an important market. So if you make something that has a wider appeal, it becomes commercially viable. Now, we're solving a human problem, but to make that a sustainable solution, you've got to make something that people value. And that's why, we have done something that works not just across generations, but it works across levels of mobility impairment. So, for instance, in an airport, it's quite difficult for someone to walk 1 kilometer to the gate. So it's not just people in wheelchairs, it's people who, there are 8 million people in the UK who cannot walk 400 meters without assistance. That's not my number, that's from the Office of National Statistics. And when you use that number, like, people are like, really? They can't believe there are that many people. Because I think some people try to hide it. And I think if you make beautiful things that people want, it's applicable to a wider. I'm going on. I better allow some of my other panelists to talk.
Just before you pass the microphone over, what was the little thing you said?
I lost my mobility, not my sense of aesthetic.
Yeah, cool. No, thanks for that. Yeah, like that.
That's not my word. That was words of one of the people we interviewed.
That's right. I pinch quotes all the time.
Yeah.
And if you would like to be in the next fashion show, you've got a place.
What not to wear?
No, not at all. What to wear? No. What to wear? Right.
Can I add something on to the end?
For sure.
Of that?
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting. One of the the early attitudes that we encountered at Neo Walk was, what's the point? And that was the attitude that people had. It was, what's the point of making something like that, making it look pretty? And that's the attitude of someone who's probably never used one, has probably never encountered a family member or a loved one having to use one. Yeah.
Don't think that they're
Yeah.
worth.
Yeah, what's the point? And it's just how can it cost that much? It's just because it does, because materials are expensive, and we're a very small scale. I'm rambling on now as well, but
No, go ramble ahead. Go.
The point was is the attitude was, what's the point? And I think that's what you're talking about. Is I became disabled. I didn't lose my sense of aesthetics.
Can I reply?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
So I've spoken to some of you earlier, but forgive me if I'm going to repeat myself. But I'm inspired by a woman named Sue Austin, who if you Google her on YouTube, you'll see she does an underwater wheelchair, and she was able to. It's a gimmick, but it's an attention-grabbing gimmick for a reason, because she was able to walk when she was younger, and then lost her ability, needed a chair, and she found that people treated her differently, and what happened? People felt pity for her, and she internalized that, and then she deliberately set about rejecting that. She said, "A chair gives me freedom," and she went about using art as a way to express her freedom. And she put paint on the wheels of her chair and went around the grass and just created an expression of what her chair meant for her. And to me, that was really important. And so that, to me, reject what people, don't internalize it, is what I would, and so she was proud of it and expressed it and used art as a way to express it. And I think that inspires me. And that's, we didn't start with the existing wheelchair. We started with the dining chair and a social situation. And he said that was our starting point. And so we designed for social situations and something that people would be proud of. Sorry, so violent agreement with your approach.
Right, yeah, very good. Brilliant. So, Lindsay, Neo Walk has resonated globally. How do you hope designers will, or how do you hope your designs will influence the next generation of designers and reshape how the fashion world views disability?
Well, I think that, like I touched on earlier, the age of the population who are using mobility aids now is a lot younger than it ever used to be, and that's down to clinical testing, it's down to diagnosis, early diagnosis. So people are actually discovering that they're living with a chronic illness a lot earlier now than we ever used to. So I think because the population, for example, if I say using our walking sticks, they are going to be in that age group where they may well go on and become designers themselves, and they could become inspired by the designs that we've made, that you've made, that we've all made, and go on and become designers themselves. But I think, and I keep saying this, and I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's connecting with an even younger generation than that. It's connecting with the kids that are in school now, and it's normalising disability for them. It's normalising their school friends that they see that have mobility issues. It's their family members, it's their loved ones. It's just making them see that that's actually normal, it's just part of life, and that will carry on. That isn't going to change, and we hope that. I'll tell you a story. I went into a primary school to do a talk to some. It was the upper primary, so it was like 8 to 11-year-olds, and I took in a couple of prosthetic legs with me, so they could pass them round, feel the weight of them, because they are stunningly heavy. And when everyone picks up a leg, they go, "Wow, how do you walk with that?" So I thought, here we go, let's pass them round. So they were all passing them round, and the girls were, "Oh, how do you feel does it hurt? Does it, that they were the very touchy-feely sort of questions. The boys couldn't have cared less. All they wanted to do was to know how it worked. Does it bend? Does it move? Is it electronic? Do you charge it up? Do you, and and these are the designers of tomorrow. It's getting them interested and seeing that, the social impact that they can have. Just by devoting thought and design. There was one young man who came up to me afterwards and said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I thought, oh God, this could go anywhere. This question. He's 11, goodness. And he said, "What did they do with your leg after they cut it off?"
Brilliant, yeah.
Like they'd given me it in a jar to take home, I said, "Don't really know, mate. I was fast asleep." But do you know what? They're so that all they want to do is to know how things work. And in a supermarket, for example, when children come up to me and they talk, and the parents want to pull them away, and I'll say, "No, just come and let them chat." It's just making it not scary, and normalising it. And encouraging them to think that, this is part of their tomorrow as well, because it's going to be, because disability can come down on any one of us at any single time. And that's the one thing that we're all, it's level with all of us. And I've forgotten the question, Mark.
That's right,
Have I answered that?
Yeah, you've answered it in terms
I
of
think
that next generation.
It's connecting with the younger generation, but also feeding that through to the generations that are using our mobility aids now, and making them see that there is a point, that it is worthwhile, that it has an effect, and it can make them feel better about themselves, which I think every one of us here that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
And it's important.
And I think for all the criticism about the lack of legacy from the Olympics and Paralympics in 2012, I do believe there is a softer legacy, and that's the young people that witnessed 2012 are now coming into the workforce.
Yeah.
And from some of my experiences, although it could have been a better legacy, I think there is hopefully a legacy that we haven't quite seen, because those young people are only just starting to enter the workforce.
Agree with you. Completely agree. Because in London in 2012, the whole atmosphere of the whole place changed, didn't it? Everybody felt positive. It was cool to be in a wheelchair. I did a thing with Mark's wife for the Paralympics, and we used to get stopped. Are you an athlete? Are you an athlete? And, no, I'm just dangling around on wires up in the
That was pretty
air.
impressive, though.
It was quite impressive.
If you get a chance to watch the opening ceremony of the Paralympics from 2012, I think my wife and you probably trained harder than some of the athletes for what you did. So don't.
We did.
Yeah.
I've got a wonderful photo that I'll show you of me and Samantha later. But yeah, it just left a whole positive energy around the place. And I think to say that completely went and that we haven't felt an effect, I think is wrong, because I agree with you. I think those younger people were inspired, and they are coming into the workforce now. Completely agree.
Yeah, I think it could be better, but I think hopefully there will be.
But imagine if we could get through into that even younger generation,
Yep.
and just inspire them to be interested and to pick up the baton.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
that's
brilliant.
what I
Thank you very much. And Claire, collaboration is clearly key between policy, business and design. How can these sectors work better together to turn inclusive ideas into a lasting impact? That's a heavy question, isn't it?
It is quite a big question. I'm not sure I have the go-on answer. But
You've got 30 seconds to answer it.
I guess picking up on what you were saying, it is about changing that conversation for people, I think. And I think, leadership is so key in that, and we've done quite a bit of work around that. But leadership is really key on that, whether that's, politicians or whether that's community leaders or businesses. We start from the beginning, we separate a lot of disabled children out into different schools, and then, and we create these sort of silos, and then people go through their lives, and, in the workplace, there's lots of people that are fearful of disclosing their disability because they think they might be discriminated against by their employer. And so we sort of have this constant battle. And as you were saying, hopefully lots of us have the opportunity to get old and to then experience, to reach an age where we then are faced with a lot of these things. And so disability impacts all of us in one way or another. But it's having that conversation. I do think government, of course, has a big role in that. And I think local government has a role in that. We just did a project with Coventry as part of this National Centre for Accessible Transport work. And, I think local communities have that opportunity to sort of facilitate businesses. When I was in Paris last year, where I stayed in like an Airbnb for the Paralympics. And the road I stayed on, I'd go and get my coffee in the morning, there were only about 7 or 8 shops, but every single one of them had a ramp out the front of it. And I just noticed things like that, which is so simple to do and doesn't cost much and isn't difficult and makes such a difference. But sort of culturally, I don't think we're there at all yet. There's so far to go, and we are making progress, but it is a long hurdle. And I don't have the answer. I think it is, I studied biology about 15 years ago, and out of every, God knows how many thousand students there were at the university, there were a small group of about 20 of us that were into the environment and were sort of quite active. And, we were seen as being sort of hippies, really, that we cared about carrying our flasks in and things like that. Now everybody does that. All of a sudden, about 8 or 9 years ago, things just switched, and every business wants to show that they're environmental and they're sustainable, and society just changed really quickly. And I do believe that will happen with accessibility. I don't know when, I don't have the golden answer, but I do think if we keep pushing and politicians keep moving in the right direction and we keep campaigning and all of us here doing things like this and moving that conversation on, I am hopeful that it will happen. And I know that I know there are lots of people that have said, oh, it's too slow, which I agree, but I think we are moving in the right direction, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. I think for some of the frustrations that I have in my work, I do feel we are starting to reach a tipping point. And if a few things change, and if Number 10 would put a ramp outside Number 10 Downing Street, it did make me chuckle yesterday when the Spinal Injuries Association were delivering a petition to a house they couldn't get into, and I think sometimes we have to call those things out. But
can I just add something there? Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I went to a BizFest in Essex in the summer, and Mike Adams was there, and bless him, he must be exhausted after Purple Tuesday. But one of the things he said when he was there is, it's all very well putting things in place for accessibility when the money's there. It's a great thing to do, but when the money isn't there and it's not the priority, it won't get done. And I think that says it all, doesn't it, really?
Yep.
So I know that finishes on a sour note, but it's, like you say, we'll keep pushing, and I don't want to sort of bring up a situation in terms of, but it was a very awakening fact that really didn't sit very well.
You can,
sorry.
yeah.
We've
got plenty of time.
But I think that's because people are treating it as a statutory obligation, not as an opportunity. I think if you treat it as an opportunity, rather than something, we talk to airports, and airports treat the passenger assistance as a statutory obligation. But if they actually provided a better service, more people would come. There's a survey that was done that said 2/3 of the people with mobility impairment look at the hassles of air travel and don't book.
Yep.
That's 5 million unsold air tickets a year.
Yep.
It pays for itself if they looked at it like an opportunity and not as an obligation.
Yeah, and I think on a positive, I've been involved in a couple of projects recently where people have asked me to think future-proof things and not say, what are the minimum requirements, what have we got to do? They are actually saying, we want to be accessible in 30 years' time. So what's the bar you want to try and set? And we sometimes don't know.
Or what even is the interim measures? We're not even, sometimes a stair climber isn't actually the answer long term, when that's okay. Sometimes we have interim solutions that help us to get to those long-term plans, and they don't seem to see beyond that, do they?
No. But brilliant. Well, that's the end of my questions. So thank you to the panel so far. But have we got any questions in the audience? Oh, I can see loads of hands going up. Fiona, I'll pass you the mic.
Is with regard to sort of statutory obligations, I think one of the problems we have with the successive governments is they won't put in place any more demanding requirements. It's all down to In fact, it's down to the EHRC to put down the requirements for accessibility. And what I find is that unless they're forced to do it, they won't do it, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And when you go to France, they actually laid down a law, didn't they, saying in 2 years, just a couple of years ago, if in 2 years you're not accessible to everybody, you're going to be fined, or you're going to, you're going to be shut down. And I just think, do you think the British government should do the same thing? Should they? Question.
Thanks, Fiona. I do, yeah. I think that a bit like what we said last year in sport, which is very similar, but I think now maybe they could say, okay, well, we're going, now we've got a fairly new government, or, they could say, well, this is best practice, there's some really nice examples of what people do, this is what the National Trust does, this is what this business does, and maybe could highlight some ideas. But I do think when you get to the point where people are just basically being denied access and not having the same opportunities as everyone else and having the Equality Act breached, yeah, I do think that, I think the government should set a deadline of, say, okay, let's say in 2030, actually, just like you said in France, that this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. You're going to get fined or whatever it might be. But I guess also going back to what Eric said, is that's right, because you want to make sure people's legal rights are protected, but also you do want society to move forward as well. Like you want, apart from government, you want all of us, whether it's businesses or other organisations, to want to do this because it's a good opportunity and because it's the right thing to do, and it also makes good business sense. So I think it's a bit of both. I do think the government should be tougher and there should be some way of meeting that. But I also think that society needs to catch up too, and it should be an opportunity for people as well. We should want to do this.
Brilliant, thanks. And I saw another hand go up at the back there. I'll just bring you a mic.
Thank you. It was a very nice panel conversation, to be honest. I just happen to work for a company that is having a very hard time putting together facilities that are wheelchair-friendly and people with disability friendly, if that makes sense. And the reason is always the same. We don't have the budget. At this point, is there for you guys a potential way to promote these, facilities that are friendly to people with disabilities, despite the fact that the budget is not there?
Is it an office or is it a retail environment? Yeah. So it's not a disability statistic, it's a diversity statistic. But organizations, and it's more about age diversity, but I'm going to broaden it because I think it's applicable in a broader sense. Organizations that have diverse workforce are more profitable, more successful. And so if you only allow a certain type of ability person into your office, you are limiting your potential as an organization. I think what you need to do is frame it as an opportunity and not there's the carrot and the stick, right? And maybe you need both. To your point, there's a consequence of doing nothing. There has to be a consequence of doing nothing. But at the same time, I think I'm a half glass full kind of person. And I think if you sell the opportunity, not just sell it, but show it. I don't know if there's an opportunity. Maybe you've got a good example of someone who does this well, but
But there's also the missed opportunity. So there's also something about if you don't. So there is, what you said was brilliant. It was absolutely right. By showing yourself as a diverse employer, attracting a great range of candidates, that shows promise, that shows equality, and you as an employer really stand out. And actually that says a lot about you as an employer.
And you outperform the other organizations.
Yeah. But actually it's the opportunity missed, isn't it? It's the opportunity. If you don't do that, how are you pursued? How are you seen in the press? What is the attitude towards your organisation? How are you setting an example in that industry? And in terms of budget, you know what? There's lease hire. There's ways around making budgets work. Let me tell you, there are ways of making things work. If the organisation is prepared to show their commitment and dedication, it's not always about a sale or a purchase. It's about leading by example. It's about showing, demonstrating, creating case studies. Let's do something here by example, where actually we create an opportunity for that organisation to put themselves on a platform and say, look what we're doing here. We're leading the way. We're showing how this gets done. And actually, if we do that in collaboration and we create that bit of PR, what a golden opportunity. So it's not always about the budget. Sometimes I find we go out and do jobs to help families for nothing. We do it because it's the right thing to do. And if you can find organisations out there, good luck, but they are out there and they will be willing to listen. And if you can get enough case studies, then those will follow, others will follow. So it's not always about necessarily the budget.
And if you don't, Fiona will find you for the Ludicrous Lou Award, the Blue Badge style.
Yeah, I think.
Need to fix that.
Yeah, for me, it's also reframing it. It's not an additional cost; it is the cost. Yeah, because people seem to think, well, it's going to cost us extra. Well, no, it's not. It is the cost.
I don't believe in that. I think it's a tick box exercise sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You've got, what's it called, disability standard, for example. If I tick the box, I can get the award. And I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
In some respects, I do agree with what you're saying. It's great publicity. But also, for example, we can get an interview if we do this, what's it called, disability standard. It might be not the right word, but
Yeah.
if we qualify because we're disabled, we get an interview. Big deal. We're not going to get the job, are we, at the end of the day? There's
Right.
80% of disabled people are unemployed at the end of the day. I'm not having to go at any of the panelists. Please don't think that. I'm supporting you. I think you're doing a great thing, but 80% of people at the present time are unemployed. And it used to be 75%. I'm 53 at the end of the day. You're doing a great job. I'm not criticising. We need to do a lot more. Please don't take it.
I get a lot of organisations contact me and they say that there's this product on the market and it's called a stair climber. And it's an evacuation chair with a tiny, and they say, we want to order 10 of those for our offices. And I say, go on, good luck. Go tick your box. I don't want anything to do with it. Because you're right, there's a miseducation there about access, about evacuation, about if you're joining your workplace, what do we have to do to make that work, whether it's access through, the initial steps into induction, whether that's making them feel settled and welcome, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, and the tick box thing you talk about is a big piece of education that we're nowhere near doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disability confidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can have the highest ranking in disability confidence via the UK government, and you don't need to employ a disabled.
Yeah.
It's completely ridiculous.
Oh, sorry, we missed the mic on that one. Yeah, go on.
The other question I was going to say is, I completely understand the situation about you're promoting your products, I suppose, and services, but will you be the main one that they consider? Because if you're saying people would, for example, like the walking stick, it's a branded name, it's fantastic for young people, completely understand, you're different. If you've got a guide dog and you're blind, people are going to talk to you. If you've got a white stick, that's completely different from other people. They're going to speak to you because you're different. How do you compare with a bog standard product at the end of the day, like a walking stick, for example?
Sorry.
I've done an
You kept saying walking stick, so it must be me. No, no. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. How is it different? I mean, I didn't invent the walking stick. All I've done is looked at it through a different lens of what can give somebody that extra feeling of confidence, and how can we do that, and how can we deliver that? And that's essentially all we did. It's a basic thing, and all we've done is look at it through the eyes of someone who may be younger, the eyes of someone who is older and stylish. Forgive my pink hair, it was an experiment last night. But do you know what? Just because we're disabled, it doesn't mean we don't have a mirror when we leave the house. You know, we still all check what we look like, and before we leave. It's like what you said. So all we've done is try to reimagine something that, people could have done it a lot of years ago, but they couldn't see the point. And I hear that a lot. And that's all we've done is to bring. I don't know whether you realise this, but there's a very old law. There's nobody here from HMRC, is there? Awesome. There's a very old law that means your average walking stick has to be charged. No, it's not VAT, is it? Helena will put me right here. We are meant to charge VAT on our walking sticks just because they've been decorated or been made to look. No, I'm not. Truly, I'm picking a battle with the HMRC if they finally come and ever check my books out. We let people declare themselves as chronically sick and that they don't have to pay VAT. But however, we actually probably should be. Don't put this out on social media. But it's a really, really old law. It goes back 120 years. That should be revisited, because if I give one of our walking sticks to somebody able-bodied, they would look at it and go, yeah, so what? It's a walking stick. Give one of our walking sticks to somebody, and they'll do Charlie Chaplin. Or like the guy did on Dragon's Den, I gave them a walking stick, and he pretended it was a lightsaber. Exactly the response I expected to get from him. Give it to somebody who's got a disability, and they'll look at it. Half of them will cry, because they'll say, oh my God, I've never seen a walking stick quite so pretty as that. And they feel included in the whole design sphere that goes on in the world, that goes on into shoes, it goes on in clothes, it goes on in glasses.
Believe it or not, it even goes on in stair climbers.
Well, there you go.
We do things for children. We work with a lot of children. Kent Council at the moment has a huge housing crisis. They can't move their families. And you've got some very disabled children and families, young children, and we're working with a lot of occupational therapists, and they can't put lifts in, they can't put 3-floor adaptions in. And actually, the lifesaver for that family is a stair climber with a seating system, with Power Rangers stickers all over it, with seating systems that are coloured, with just something that makes it feel. Our stair climbers, for example, aren't something that look like they come out of the archaic. It's not this great big platform that looks like it's going to swallow you up.
It's something that says, we thought about you.
Yes.
And that means so much, doesn't it?
Why should it look like a medical device? It's an extension of you. And I just think that what you're saying is that we're moving forward with innovation and technology, and we're thinking about that social engagement and sitting around that dining table with the family and feeling part of everyday society. That doesn't mean that our equipment and our solutions need to be sat in the dark age. Yeah. Goodness me. Certainly not while I'm around.
Cool. Thanks very much. I've got a final question. No, all good. Just picking up on that costing, I've shared a picture in one of my presentations of my sports tennis, of a tennis court with some steps and a ramp, and they've literally just been built. So I'm looking at that going, okay, who wasted the money on the stairs? and the steps. If we just put a ramp in, everybody could go up. Why have we got to have? Why have we got to have both?
Yeah.
And it's been built in the last, 2 years.
Yeah, but that just ingrains even further that that stigma,
Yep.
and the well, it's not inclusive, is it? Because you need stairs, I need a ramp.
Yeah.
But you can use a ramp. Exactly. Prams can use a ramp. We're not just talking about people in wheelchairs. We're talking about people with pushchairs.
No, exactly.
as
But
well.
I'm sure the psychology of the people that built that would be, we need to put steps in, and then we need to spend some extra money on a ramp, rather than just put a ramp in and save money on and don't bother with the steps.
We need to be inclusive, that's what it is. We'll put able-bodied who can walk up the stairs, and people who can't because of their mobility needs, we'll consider them afterwards.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah. Apologies. I'll get there. Right. Well, first of all, a huge thank you to our panellists tonight. Give them a big round of applause. And then I've got a few thank yous to a few sponsors to thank. So London Kindred, our host. So we've got representatives of the bar. We'll give them a ripple. Thank you very much for hosting us this evening. The European Investment Bank and the Blue Badge Access, represented by Fiona. Give Fiona a ripple. And thank you for always coming to support us, Fiona, as well. The Brazilian Consulate, the Stair Climbing Company, who have been on the panel tonight, Open Style Lab, and the BPlay app. And thank you all for coming to be part of the discussions. It's always a pleasure to do these. And as I say, Sam's not here. She's the driving force behind this, not me. I just turn up and get collared to do things when she's not here. But no, she, although we work together with Vitoir, Sam is very much the driving force, so we thank her for that. And we'll conclude, and if you'd like to have some refreshments, I think my understanding is the food is available downstairs till 9:30, and feel free to stay around and have a network and conversations. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Substitute, I don't know, chair. I found out last night, but that's all good.
You did very well. Well done.
Thank you so much for your time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm interested. I've sent you.
Yeah.